Hello and welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be talking about my remote camera system that some of you asked about in a previous volleyball photography video. So I'm going to be showing you the gear that I use and how I set it up. And I don't have any POV, so I'm going to try to explain where I set this camera up and how I set it up to keep it down there for the game. So I take my Canon R6 without the battery pack and I mount it onto this base plate. I've got this just pretty generic flat plate off of Amazon, I think it was. And then I bought a ball head tripod head. So I have full control over the angle that I set the camera at. So I could shoot up pretty steep up into the net or wherever I'm setting it. And then I have gaffer's tape on the bottom of this just so it doesn't slide or hurt the court in any way if it gets moved or anything. With that, I am using the Pocket Wizard Plus X remote system. So this one with the cable goes onto the camera that's on the base plate, and then this goes into the remote port, and then this one goes onto the camera that I'm shooting with on the second R6. And anytime that I have this turned on, this will trigger the other camera. So anytime that I am shooting an angle from wherever I'm at with the second camera, as long as I'm within the range of this receiver, it's going to trigger that other camera and shoot that lower wide angle. Now, I don't know what the range is on these, but most likely within a gymnasium, you're not going to be out of range. So I just move around freely when I'm using this system, because I know I'm not going very far for what I'm shooting. So now for the angle, I'm usually setting this up under the judge that sits up on the platform. So he's got like a little ladder that goes up and he's in line with the net. I'm usually putting that down underneath that and behind the cushioned poles. That way it's in a spot where the ball couldn't go through and hit it. And most likely, very unlikely, is a player gonna be sliding into it down there. Because of the angle, they would almost have to do like a 180 after they hit the floor and slid. So it's very, very unlikely for the player to slide into this camera or remote system. So I've had no issues putting it there for the past couple years, and the judges have always seen it and they've never said anything about it being an issue. If anything, I get questions of what it is and what it's doing. So I use what lens I'm shooting this with, which is the Canon RF 16mm 2.8. I put the camera in manual mode. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to sit down there and shoot with autofocus, and most likely if I left it up to the camera, the autofocus would probably grab the roof, because that's going to be the most direct thing it's going to see. So I set the manual focus during warm-ups and try to focus it just a few feet out and a few feet up. Kind of when they're practicing their spiking during warm-ups, I try to set my focus then and just leave it alone after that. And then during any other warm-ups or anything, I make sure the camera doesn't shut off so the manual focus doesn't move or anything, because on the Canon R6 it will collapse the lens, so it kind of moves it and everything. So anyways, I set it at like f3.2 to give me a little bit of extra range, a little more forgiveness. Set the ISO where I think it needs to be, so it's going to be dependent on your gymnasium. And then my shutter speed, I'm trying to get at least 1/500th of a shutter, if not faster. Faster the better, but depending on how the lighting is and what jerseys they're in, it's going to depend on how fast I can go with my shutter. If they're wearing darker jerseys, I'm going to have to go a little faster or a little slower to keep them from being too dark in the exposure. Overall, this part of the setup is fairly cheap. You could probably do it for under 20 bucks. It's the remotes that are going to get you, is finding the proper remotes that work with your camera, that are not going to mess up and that are going to work. And so far I have had no problem with these. I had them in the past, and then I kind of got out of doing remote stuff for a while, needed to sell some gear off, so I sold it, and then I upgraded to this newer version of them, and they've been flawless and they're great. I will put links down in the description below to these items, or at least items that are just like them that might be a little cheaper, or just different companies, because some of these companies make this kind of stuff and then they kind of disappear off the map because they're just like third party, fourth party, whatever it is. But with that said, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. If you want to see some more of these photos and some more of my sports photography, you can follow me on Instagram at GorillaPhotog. I'd appreciate it if you like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.